Set in the year 1962, Atomfall's location of northern England gives you a sense of isolation without the need for a full world devastation. Set in Windscale in Cumberland, where I can only presume you grow cumberbatches for theater, you wake up with no memory of who you are or how you got there. I'm Logan Keller with Xbox Expansion Pass, and thanks to Rebellion for this opportunity to preview Atomfall. Gameplay footage was captured on a PC with an NVIDIA 4070 at 1080p resolution, and the recording was set to 60 frames per second. This was my playthrough of the game, and it was a preview build. In the hour and 45 minutes I had to explore the zone, I found myself in areas I wasn't expected to go to until later in the game. I suspect the game will drop you off into new zones as you progress through the story, but it was clear that this is not the entire map of the game, and you'll be venturing to different regions as you go. Speaking of maps, you do get one for the zone you're in, and while there are indicators of what different areas are, once you mouse over them, the little blue exclamation mark disappears, and you'll be forced to venture there if you want to find out what it was. As you explore the map, you'll find landmarks that will have a scribbled in icon on the map to help guide you if you happen across a lead that tells you to venture to that area. More on leads later. Each location has coordinates, which I suspect will come into play if you come across a note telling you the coordinates of a point of interest instead of what the place is called. The coordinates do line up with the map lines, so if you're familiar with how to read a map, you may not need the cursor at all. As you discover entry points to different basements, caves, bunkers, etc., they'll begin to populate the map as well, offering you an opportunity to go back to those locations if you need to search for something you might have overlooked originally. This brings me back to leads. As described by creative director Ben Fisher, this is a game that has you following leads or clues to uncover more of the truth about what happened in Windscale. Why the atomic plant exploded. Why is there a blue glowy vortex at the rubble? This, in effect, is your quest system. But instead of killing 15 boars in Elwyn Forest, you'll be talking to people to determine what they need in exchange for the information you want. This is when I finally made my way across the map to Mother Jago, who was supposed to help guide me according to the lead I had when I started. She advised me that she might be able to help me understand this place if I retrieve a book she's missing, and that it's most likely with the Druids, or cultists, at a castle that happened to be located at the beginning of the play zone when I started. After a bit of discussion and some light bartering, side note, you don't really buy anything with currency, but anything in your inventory can be traded for as long as it balances what they have, including individual bullets. I said my good days and wandered off. I want to take a moment to talk about why I didn't go back to the Druids camp to finish up the lead Mother Jago had given me. When I started off playing, I didn't exactly run to the old mine where Mother Jago was camped out. Instead, I found my way into the cultist camp. As soon as I had left the storm drain I started in, I'd been attacked by a couple of Druids patrolling the area. As part of the preview process, I decided this would be a good time to dig deeper and find out how good is the combat. Early introductory videos for the preview described to us that not everything needed to be solved with violence, so I wanted to test that out. And after running around a bit, I have to say that the combat is by far the weakest point of the game so far. Now, as far as I know, I was playing on normal difficulty, so I'll say that it doesn't take much at the start of the game to take down enemies. In fact, in some cases, they're easy with the right weapon. The AI at work here is predictable. You have a short amount of time as they become aware to you, but once they've deemed you a threat, they quickly beeline to you, navigating a designated path that will cause them to turn sharp right angles and adjustments if they need to get around an object. At one point, I had jumped over a trip line to a trap, and the druid who was patrolling ran right through the trap, almost killing them. The dialogue here gets repetitive as well, with a few voices for the handful of different styled cultists. The actual combat here is also rather simplistic based on the short amount of time I spent experimenting. Aside from a light and heavy attack, you can throw just about anything you can wield. You do get guns as well as bows, which can be upgraded, but ammo is sparse, and unless you're hitting headshots, most enemies will require multiple bullets to take down. Melee seems to favor fast, one-handed weapons, and it seems to come down to who hits who first and more frequently, as there's no dodge, parry, or block system. So what's the trick? You get to kick people. A good stomp to someone's abdomen will leave them open to an attack. Otherwise, you run away and reset their attack animation or switch to a ranged weapon. According to the devs, you're not meant to be a hero. You're just a normal person trying to survive. The idea here is that you have to control your space by kicking enemies away from you, giving you a chance to attack. This brings me to the skill tree. Things are broken up into 4 different areas of training: ranged combat, melee combat, survival, and conditioning. The skills here will offer a range of options for dealing with threats, but don't expect anything too extravagant. Each section has 3 options at different training costs, with 3 tiers giving a total of 9 skills per area. When we started, there was a training book that had opened up more stealth options like quiet takedowns, quiet movement, and surprise attacks. You'll need to find more training guides if you hope to open up more skills, and there aren't enough training stimulants, aka skill points, in the game to obtain every skill. Again, I feel the intent here is that you're quote-unquote making do as a normal person without any training on how to handle infiltration or survival skills. That being said, even after speccing into stealth takedowns, it was unclear how to draw enemies over to me. This leads me to my next issue, the inventory and materials system. All of your ammo and materials are stored as quantities with a max cap. This is so you are limited by how much of each you can carry at any time. And your backpack can hold 12 small items like handguns, small blades, axes, grenades, Molotovs, and any food or healing items. And depending on how many materials you have, you can find recipes to learn how to craft healing items or throwables. This is something you can do on demand, but the game does not pause when you enter your menu. So if you're going to go into a combat scenario, you'll want to stock up on healing materials first. Besides the 12 small items, you can have 4 large inventory slots to hold 2-handed axes, morning stars, shotguns, rifles, or bows. Your flashlight and metal detector have their own slots as tools, and you can assign any weapon to a shortcut. I could not figure out if you could add a shortcut for healing items, which paired with the no dodge or block option meant that I got overwhelmed by cultists and I would quickly end up dead and potentially stuck in a bad autosave loop. One thing I did notice with this system is how you loot and craft. You can quickly take something if your bag has space or you aren't capped on your materials, but if you want to loot, craft, or consume something, you will need to hold down the key to do so. What this meant during my playtime was a lot of time spent in menus. I will say that having under 2 hours makes it hard to get a full picture of how the game flows, so I anticipate the learning curve to be easier when starting fresh with the game. It is clear this is a gameplay design, given there's a skill that allows you to reduce the time it takes to search bodies. Searching bodies is essential for your survival, and not only will you be searching bodies, but you'll also be searching buildings for clues. The best searching, though, is by searching with your metal detector. As you travel across the map, you'll hit spots where you'll hear your metal detector chirp up, letting you know there's a cache nearby. These are going to be your Hunger Games lifeline as you use your metal detector to track down the buried booty, offering a range of items that could help you with ammo, healing, or materials. I did appreciate this change up in the formula. but you will still find yourself opening crates for items as you stumble your way through old buildings or squeezing between narrow walls in a basement. The exploration in the game is interesting, with the complex environments that showcase the attention to detail. You can tell people have been trying to utilize areas that originally weren't populated, while at the same time, buildings that were once homes are now ruins covered in vines and tall grass. Traversal is a bit of a challenge as you can vault over things, but you can't mantle very well. There were a couple of times I tried to climb up onto things or ledges and found my efforts fruitless. What's odd is that many places are laced with tripwires. Some of the traps are meant to scare you away, telling you to stay out or piss off with a rattle of cans, while others are stakes or large timber logs meant to impale you or slam you so hard that you feel like you've been ambushed by Ewoks. You can disarm these to get materials for crafting, but you'll need to drop a skill point before you can do so. Otherwise, you can set them off with a well-placed gunshot or thrown weapons. The interactions and acting I've experienced were limited, but the culture and history feel authentic. Given Rebellion Studios' history and location, it's clear they put a lot of work into making the game represent England in every cottage and Cornish pastry. While I expect there may be more variety with NPCs in the world, I did notice many of the Druids or cultists wore the same garb and said the same lines. It's hard to know based on my playtime if this is representative of the entire game, but from my experience, being berated as a non-believer or a heretic wore on me.
Christ, watch yourself, it will be more use dead.
You will be more use dead.
You will be more use dead.
Atomfall has definitely set itself up for offering a post-apocalyptic adventure during a time and place few games explore. You aren't meant to be skilled, and the game centers itself firmly on that basis. If you're hoping to be a hero or have that kind of power fantasy, you may want to adjust your expectations. This is one that I feel deserves a full playthrough to know how well the game turns out, but for this preview, I was left wanting.